Heroes? That your idea of a joke? Because no one's laughing. You weaklings can't protect a thing.
Now or never. Just fight it out. Just fight it out.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we take an anime series and episode by episode dissect it, analyze it, show why we love and hate it. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me is obviously my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, I have nothing for you. I've run out of stuff to be able to ask you, and so I'm going to ask you pancakes or waffles.
Pancakes, how about that?
Okay. All right. So we are back with Geek News Anime Night with the Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1.5, which is actually a lot shorter than I thought it was. It's actually like 4 or 5 episodes. I could have sworn it was bigger than that. But let's go ahead and get right into it. As we said with the cliffhanger of episode 2, we found our wonderful shield hero found a dragon hourglass that was saying that the next wave was going to be in the next 48 hours. And originally, you and I remember in the podcast, we said, okay, this will be interesting to see how Naofumi can get the Cal Mira archipelago ready for it. Turns out that's not what happened. Instead, Naofumi used his teleport ability to go back to Melramark and inform the queen of the upcoming wave. And at that point, she assembles her great fleet. They evacuate the Cal Mira archipelago and get ready to have a fight in the next wave, prepping up for all the 4 cardinal heroes, plus Lark, plus Therese. And most of the episode here is the battle. So at that point, like, the waves begin, and we see the ships all battling. I'm going to call them Sahagin, but basically they're mer people. So like they're evil mer people that are trying to get on the ships and trying to kill off all the heroes. And wouldn't you know it, the other 3, they're having a bit of a tough time, aren't they? Especially since apparently the sword hero still is rather not seaworthy, and he has to hug a mast the entire time. What'd you think of that?
How could they be heroes if they can't even tolerate being on sea?
I mean, at least we could say with Motoyasu and I think it's Ishiki, the bow hero, they were fighting.
That's true.
And in fact, Ishiki was strategizing because he was basically directing all of the archers on his boat to fire volleys and joined with them when they did that.
That's true.
And even added like his meteor shot into it to increase the volley. So you had that. Motoyasu was basically being Motoyasu. He was sticking his spear in whatever he could find. And I can't remember his name, but the sword hero, poor sword hero, is just stuck to the mask.
I want to call him Ren, but I don't know if that's...
It might be Ren. So at that point, he's basically hugging the mast and swinging at things that come nearby. What's interesting, too, is that Melty kind of basically rejoins the shield hero, which is weird because the way that they've made it out to be, all 3 of them have gained way more experience and are probably farther leveled than Melty is. So at that point, I don't know how she's going to be that much help. In fact, if I remember correctly, there was a moment where she almost got abducted by the mer people, and Naofumi had to come in and save her. Or was it Lark? I can't remember who saved her, but somebody did. And actually, no, because the shield hero his party was specifically handling a bigger monster. It was like a ginormous narwhal. And he was basically making sure that it was down for the count so that they couldn't destroy ships.
Well, yeah, plus he was flying on Philo.
Yeah, he was flying on Philo, and I can't remember what Raftalia was doing, but she was with them too.
I think she was just trying to
Oh, no, she was just defending a ship, because he was just with Philo. So at that point, I think it was Raftalia was on the same ship. No, she was on the same ship as the Queen. Lark and Therese were on a different ship and getting ready for the wave. So what did you think about the overall battle that was going on, both with the giant narwhal that Naofumi was fighting, and then all of the little mer people that were giving a tough time to the army?
Well, that's kind of a battle you would expect, I'm sure, because,
There were some good moments here and there. Like, we got to see Melty get rescued. We got to see, I think the Queen actually casts, like, a big spell in this one, doesn't she?
I think, didn't she also help try to protect the other ships or something?
Yeah, I think that might have been the big spell, is that she was going to protect all of the ships, basically showing her magic prowess. And Naofumi isn't really showcased here with the narwhal, because the narwhal is being held back. And actually, I think Lark and Therese eventually have to go over to him to kill the narwhal, because it eventually does die. And the army was not helping with that. In fact, the army was dying to it.
I mean, the other heroes were not even pretty much making a dent out of it, and
yes,
Raftalia was doing at least some damage, but not enough. But it was eventually
and eventually Melty intervenes with Philo, and we get to have some dual tech magic between her and Philo and Melty, which again is weird because again Melty's really low level, so I guess maybe they just have those existing spells. And we even get to see like a big dual tech with Lark and Therese, which was also really cool. But the biggest part of this battle is ultimately, I think, when the narwhal dies, because I think they fight on it, or fight on its corpse. So like it dies, they're getting ready to collect things, and that's when the turn happens. So it turns out that Lark and Therese are actually the bad guys? What? They actually are, they're not leading the wave, but they basically turn on Naofumi at this point. And Lark wants to have his legit fight with Naofumi. All this time, he was thinking that it was a dumb idea for Naofumi to take on the name of a criminal, but then when he realized he was the actual S.H.I.E.L.D. hero, Lark was very disappointed by that, because now he has to fight him. Because it turns out that, according to Lark anyway, him and Therese are heroes from another world that have to come and invade here. I don't know why, but they kind of make it sound like they are with the wave. Nothing?
I don't have anything to say on that matter.
You don't have anything to say on the turn? On Lark and Therese turning on Naofumi's crew?
Not really.
Why not?
Because...
Why? Is it just that you're speechless, or you were bored by it?
No, I just kind of saw it coming.
Okay, so you kind of predicted that was going to happen.
Well, it just seemed too good to be true to actually have party members.
It kind of did.
And to not...
And in fact, I also did kind of predict that, because I'm like, you can't really have a hero with a scythe. So at that point, it wouldn't surprise me if he was going to turn on Naofumi. And ultimately he does. And we get to have some epic combat moments between Naofumi and Lark. They're both basically balancing each other. The interesting thing about Therese is that she basically tells the rest of the army to back off by casting a very huge spell. And does enough to not necessarily damage the ships, but to at least say, stay out of this. And then she looks down at the bracelet that Naofumi made and says like, oh, you don't want to be part of this? Okay, and then takes it off. So I guess she actually can talk to the jewelry that she uses to cast magic, but ultimately at that point it's on. And so you get to have the encounter between Lark's party and Naofumi's party, which then gets an additional twist because our buddy Glass comes back, and if people don't remember, she was in the other wave. She was the chick with the fans that Naofumi fought against and tried to use the big summoning Iron Maiden against, and it didn't really work. And so she actually comes back, and it looks like Lark and Therese know who she is. So I think that pretty much confirms that they are part of the waves, because she was too. So, oh noes! Did you expect that part, that she was going to be, or they were going to be allied with Fang, or with Glass? I always want to say Fang. I don't know why.
I don't think I thought about that, but so are they like trying to take over?
Well, the way that they made it sound is that they are heroes from another world. So at that point, so like the Shield hero, Lark is the Scythe hero, or and Alexandrite is the Jewel hero, I guess. And
I guess
and Glass would be the fan hero. And they get abilities just like the Shield does.
Are we saying that Glass is supposedly from another world, or is she?
Well, if she's allied with them, then maybe then their logic should fit into it.
Oh.
So again, we don't know any of this because they haven't really elaborated or anything like that, and we don't know if we can trust Lark's words. So at that point, like, let's just say for the sake of argument, that's the case. They are heroes that came from another world to take over this one. I mean, like, just taking that into account, what were you thinking on that?
Probably it just seems like maybe they're just like as I wouldn't say clueless as like, the other heroes. Like, they just were brought into this world, and then someone tells them, this is your mission and all that stuff. So now they're like, well, we're going to go along with it. And probably later on, maybe they'll be like, you know what, we were playing for the wrong side the whole time.
Yeah, and again, it's difficult to take them at their word, but then another big question happens. Is like, the only time we've seen Glass has been in waves. But Lark wasn't involved in the wave when we met him. He was wandering. And that's why he didn't think Naofumi was actually the Shield hero, because he'd heard rumors of him, but he's like, you don't come across to me as this lecherous bastard kind of thing. So
I still love the whole thing, but this was probably the last episode where he's like describing what the Shield hero was like, and Naofumi
and ultimately that he regretted that it actually was Naofumi, because he was actually starting to like him. I also did like the other interesting detail that did get used in here. One of the things that they do to defend themselves against the Mer people is that they put out basically depth charges, and the depth charges are actually made out of the same berries that Naofumi was just he was just basically devouring. So it's like, oh, don't light a match around Naofumi's mouth.
Don't have him swallow fire.
Don't do that. I mean, it would be a nuclear explosion and not of the fart variety. I mean, ultimately, there isn't a whole lot that happens here aside from the wave and then Lark's turn, and then we find out that he's allied with Glass, and it's a lot to take in. Like, if I were to take the concept of like they are heroes from another world, how does invading the question that comes to my mind is, how do they save their world by invading Melremark?
Who knows? Maybe they're kind of.
Do you see the problem with the logic there? Is like they're supposed to be heroes, but they're invading another land and trying to take it over.
Well, maybe they thought that the waves were maybe took over their land or something, and they thought maybe it originated in Melremark or something, and that's why they came. Something
that I hope kind of happens, because I think we've only got one more episode in season 1.5, so I don't know if it's going to address, but I kind of wish we would learn more about the waves. Just to see, like, okay, we just thought that they were initially waves of just monsters that would come in and all that, and it was pretty black and white, right? But now that Lark has made the statement, things are a bit more gray. And it almost sounds like there's a greater conflict here, one that spans many worlds. It could be that Lark and Therese are just from completely different worlds entirely, or they could be from the same world and Glass isn't. I mean, there's a lot of ways that could go, but they did make it sound like they were appointed heroes. It didn't sound like, though, that they came the same way Naofumi did. Did you notice that? Mm-hmm. Like, because we weren't getting modern, like, references from Lark. We were, he'd been in the world a while. So at that point, he either grew up in that world or he'd been there so long he probably forgot about his previous life. I don't know what to make of that, but ultimately I really hope it gets addressed, because now you actually do need to explain what the waves are and the conflict that now comes to Naofumi about it. But now that we've gone over the episode, what did it do right, Andrea?
Well, there's pretty much,
battles.
Battles is the biggest thing ever.
Okay, so the battles are the good thing here. Would you necessarily say that Lark's turn is a good thing, story-wise? I'm not saying whether or not you agree that, oh, yay, he's the bad guy. I'm saying, like, from a story perspective, is it interesting that Lark turned on Naofumi?
It's really sad, but sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm. I actually think it worked out, because they were trying to build something between Naofumi and Lark. Therese, not so much. Therese just felt like Lark's Raftalia. And so now that they're kind of building something with her too, they need to explain her too. Is like she an actual hero, or is she just his party member? I don't know. They need to explain that. Also, they need to explain Glass. We need to know, are there other heroes of other designated weapons? And why aren't they part of this world? Why are they part of another world? So I will agree with you. The battles were good.
And you gotta love the Queen. She always seems to get involved in the waves.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just...
You know what? She's a lot more proactive than Daddy.
Yeah.
But I also noticed, I don't think Malty was there. Or, sorry, Whore. Whore was there, I don't think. Because they never showed her.
I thought she kind of showed up in the scene, but I don't know whether she participated in the wave or not.
Which tells me either she was kept at Melremark or she's being kept on a very tight leash. Because when we did see Motoyasu bouncing around, it was just Motoyasu. We didn't really see his other party members. And they made it look like, at least, each hero had their own ship, and Naofumi just so happened to be on the one with the Queen.
But it's interesting that Lark said he was only after Naofumi, and he wasn't, he didn't care for the other
That's the
heroes.
other thing that was interesting, too. He wasn't interested in just destroying humanity. He just wanted Naofumi.
And he didn't want the other heroes either. Or he probably was...
No, he disregarded them as trash, basically. Mm-hmm. The way that they made it sound is that Lark saw Naofumi as a real challenge, and he didn't see the others as a real challenge.
He probably thought they were just like, well, you guys are just pretty much worthless.
And that's the impression, like, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but that's kind of the impression I got from Lark. He was just looking for a good fight.
Especially, he's like, well, I gotta destroy you, but I want to do it with, like, real sportsmanship or something like that.
Yeah, that. He did a lot of that, too. And that's why he had Therese tell everybody to back off. By doing I think it was like a big meteor shower that she did, and that was just like, stay out of this, so that we can fight. What did this episode not do right?
That was annoying when...
I will say this, I'm getting a little annoyed that the other heroes are still being kind of, for lack of a better term, pussified. Because it's just like, okay, you've been out in the Cal Mira archipelago, you should be more powerful, and you don't look like it.
Not to mention you guys are acting like...
That was the, I don't know if you noticed this, but the only one, so Naofumi, Raftalia, Philo, they were showing new weapons, new armor and things like that. Motoyasu and Ishiki didn't really show new spears or bows. Ren looked like it was a new sword because it was like a cutlass. But that was the other thing that was interesting to me, is like they're still kind of showcasing that these heroes are not very strong, and I'm thinking that's going to be a bad thing, because if you want to have more interactions, it's still going to be a weird deal, because it's difficult to do a superiority complex when you're not, and it's very clear you're not.
Not to mention they act like they can't do a lot of good.
I mean, at least Ishiki is like a strategist.
Yeah.
So like he's got something valuable there. I think Ren could do the same thing if he wasn't, seasick. Motoyasu is just, Motoyasu. He's just an idiot. So, I mean, they have that stuff, but I think they should be leveled up by now.
Well, hopefully, they'll learn that, cooperation is a big thing.
Yep. And that was another thing that's also kind of annoying me, is like, okay, Ishiki and Ren were the first one, Ren ultimately was the first one to doubt the whole plot against Naofumi. They still really don't have anything to say to Naofumi, and I would think by now he would be on a much more clean slate with Ishiki and Ren compared to Motoyasu. They don't really act like that. And I think that would have been decent character development to do.
Yeah, and especially when they don't seem to, communicate with each other, even if they're supposedly not friends, but it's
it's basically gone from, like, in the first episode, it was the three of them against Naofumi. Four Heroes Council basically made it all four of them against each other. And now we're at this point of, like, for some reason they're still against Naofumi? I don't know why. They kind of need to figure this out, and I kind of wish that they would define that, because it's obvious that these other heroes are supposed to work together from the previous season, which means that they've got to be, they're plot crucial. So at that point, they actually do need to start acting like they're plot crucial.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure if there was a wave that could probably annihilate the whole entire place, they better get their act together.
I will also say I don't like the fact that the story has now basically backed itself into a corner where it has to explain the waves. It has to explain what's going on here. I always like it when in a story, I can understand when they're backed into a corner, and sometimes it's intended. But when you back yourself into a corner and then your next episode doesn't explain anything, it hurts a lot. And that's basically what I think is going to happen here. Is they need to explain this, and if they don't do it, I'm going to be very pissed, because it's not making sense right now. So, okay, so we've gone over the good. Do you have anything bad? Or are you just agreeing with me?
I thought that was the bad we were...
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh, well, the other annoying thing was that one girl that was, like when they were getting on the little boats, and Raftalia was like...
She was supposed to be one of the party members.
I know, but she was like, get me out over there or something, and she's like...
Yeah, and she was like, no, I'm trying to evacuate people. First of all, I don't know. We need clearer definition of Ishiki and Ren's party members, because I think she was one of theirs.
I want to say maybe she could be I'm going to say she's probably the bow heroes.
So Ishiki,
party.
I think, is his name.
I want to say she's part of the bow heroes. But...
So at that point, yeah, that was kind of annoying. But I can see why they did it, because they needed to get Raftalia over.
Yeah, but Raftalia was like, I'm not going to take any more of this crap now.
Well, and there were other ways to do it. It's like, Philo drops off Naofumi, he's like, go get Raftalia. And then you bring her over, because they're obviously going to want to collect monster parts, And they kind of didn't do that. Instead, they did this weird deal. And yeah, it's weird. Those are primarily, so any others?
No, not
okay.
that I can think of.
So at that point, out of 5, what would we give what's it called again? Guardians of Another World is the episode. Sorry.
I want to give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Because of the suspense of what's going to happen.
I'm going to give it a 4 because it's good suspense, but now it has to pay off. And I always, like, in a story, I always like to try and give a little leeway so that you can tell another story if you want to, but then you can bounce back to this. And they really haven't done that here. Like, the introduction of Fang, or Glass, sorry. I always want to say Fang, I don't know why. The introduction of Glass has basically forced the issue. So at that point, they really do need to explain, okay, how does this work? And if they don't, then I'm going to be really perturbed. But yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. And
I did love the fight between Naofumi and Lark.
No, it actually was good. Like, they did a great job to be able to say that they're on even footing, considering that most of what Naofumi can do is defensive. But then this was actually a good thing, because then kind of like with the duel with Motoyasu, we got to see a lot more of the shields that are offensively minded. So, like, they've got snakes coming out of them, dogs coming out of them. I like the big shield that he had that looked like it was on his shoulder and then eventually, like, ate the fireball that Therese sent at him. That was kind of cool. But yeah, we got to see the shield hero more offensively minded in this one, so that was good. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. So when we come back, we'll be talking about the last episode of season 1.5. But really quick, before we end things, I did want to quickly address this. As of when we're recording this, it has since been announced that season 3 of Rising of the Shield Hero is happening. So at that point, season 2 was good enough to warrant a third season. How does that make you feel, Andrea?
I'll be excited.
Okay. So ultimately we'll see whether or not season 2 makes us want to watch season 3, but that is a good sign. Is that if it's getting okayed for a season 3, because anime does not run off the crazy Disney Plus principles, you actually have to earn it. But they earned it. And so now we're going to get a third season. Makes me more excited for season 2. Because now I want to see what happens in it. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us. When we come back, we will talk the last episode of season 1.5 to wrap up this arc and move into season 2. If you're brand spanking new listening to this podcast, welcome. We're happy to have you. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, on the YouTube channel where you probably saw it, or on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Player.fm, and of course, Spotify. You're free to subscribe to all of those, leave a comment, like them, do everything that you can possibly do, because it really does help for this. And YouTube people rejoice. I'm not holding things back, because the RSS feed can now just go directly to the YouTube channel. So you guys have that. And you can also check out some of the other things that we have going on, like myself, Alex, and Brinton reviewing Yu-Gi-Oh! Episodes from Battle City, because we're doing that in honor of the late Kazuki Takahashi. So you guys can check that out, or you can check out season 1. It's over there. I know that some people were offended by episode 1, but, well, deal with it. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us. We will be back for the next episode. Until then, have a good day, all right, everybody. We'll catch you later.